In the last video, I spoke about the hypothesis as one of the tools that consultants use to solve problems. The second tool will be the issue tree or framework. And I should note that these are all connected. These four tools can be thought of as four items in a toolbox. So the hypothesis works very well with an issue tree. Now, what is an issue tree? Remember when I was speaking about the hypothesis? An hypothesis only makes sense when you proceed to the next step of experimenting or proving it. And that's what the issue tree is useful for. The issue tree is a set of logical conditions that says if this hypothesis is to be true, then condition 1 should be true and condition 2 should be true, etc. So it's called an issue tree because it's like a tree on its side. So instead of having the trunk and then the branches, you turn that on its side and you have the trunk and the branches. I'll show you the diagram that explains this. So think of this as the trunk and these are branches. And the hypothesis is only true when condition 1 is true, and condition 1 might have subconditions, 1a, 1b, 1c, and condition 2 and 3 as well are true. An important thing to note is that you can think of an issue tree as a logical argument. And the way you would describe it in a sentence would be if condition 1 is true, and condition 2 is true, and condition 3 is true, then the hypothesis must be true. Of course, you can have a one-layer issue tree or you have a double-layer issue tree. So a one-layer issue tree will just be the hypothesis is true if condition 1 is true and condition 2 is true and condition 3 is true. A two-layer issue tree would be hypothesis is true if condition 1 is true and subcondition 1a, 1b, and 1c are true, and condition 2 is true and subcondition 2a, 2b, 2c are true, etc. Now, what is a framework? A framework is a template which is based on a commonly used issue tree. So I'm using a lot of so's, but I need to be more conscious about that. Consultants usually face similar problems or problems that can fit into a thematic area. Having faced such problems over and over again, they've been able to form some sort of templates that say when you face a situation that is, or when you have an hypothesis that deals with revenue, you can use this template to address that problem or see if this template addresses that problem. And that template is what we call a framework. Victor shares that many clients experience declining profits, which is true. And to address this situation, many consultants will use what is called the profitability framework, which breaks down a company's profits into revenues and expenses. Then revenues are then broken down into product prices, quantity of products sold, as well as a breakdown for costs, which could be like fixed costs or costs per unit, etc. Here's a diagram showing that. So you have profit, and then you have revenue on one branch and cost on the other branch, and then further breakdowns to form an issue tree. So here's a profitability framework diagram. As an example, and to also buttress the fact that, or to introduce the fact that an issue tree doesn't always have to be about numerical situations only or mathematical conditions. You can have an hypothesis that we should eat Mexican food for dinner tonight. And the logical argument structure would be eating Mexican food for dinner is the optimal choice. The culinary benefit is that you like the food. The financial benefit is that it's affordable. The social benefit is that your friends like Mexican food as well and will accompany you. For each of these subconditions, you have to prove that each of them is true for the hypothesis to be true. And this will lead us very nicely into the third tool in the toolkit, which is the drill down analysis. Before I talk about the drill down analysis, I just want to highlight that consultants refer to the process of devising logical arguments as problem structuring. So if you hear the word problem structuring, it's also how you're able to create your issue tree to have each of these conditions forming up to an hypothesis. And so if an interviewer tells you that your problem structuring is weak, it could mean that you forgot to state your issue tree early in the interview, or your issue tree isn't logical. And if the interviewer tells you that the issue tree isn't logical, it means the argument has a logical flaw, such that the conditions you've chosen are not logical for the hypothesis that you have made. So that's about the issue tree or the framework. Remember, an issue tree is a breakdown of an hypothesis into its component parts, or the conditions that make it true. And a framework is simply a template for commonly encountered problems which have been created into an issue tree. So framework is a template.